myself. And my first time, well, first of all, thank you all for being here and for hearing my story. Tough act to follow. And I was in like a nice meditative state, like, oh, I gotta go speak now. But my first time here at Children's Hospital was when I was treated for congenital heart disease. I had a surgery done, Dr. Pedro Lomito. I went on to play Division I field hockey. I ran a marathon my senior year of college, because why not? And checked it off my bucket list and thought I'd never run another one again. Yeah. I also didn't think I'd ever wind up back here, and I did. In 2014, I had my daughter Layden, and we knew when I was pregnant that Layden had congenital heart disease. There she is. She had congenital heart disease, so she had what I had, a little bit different. She was born here, in front of 19 sets of eyes. We were at Brigham, right across from the bridge. That was quite the experience. My first child, and to have 19 sets of eyes, including students from Harvard there to observe. I was like, welcome. This is my delivery, or later delivery. So we were observed at the hospital for a couple of weeks, and all signs looked good, so we went home. She didn't grow, so we came back, and long story short is we spent over 3 months here. So when you said those nights, I remember counting, we are at 99 nights here, and so the resources you referenced, I lived all of them. Layden had Reiki. We were able to stay in the bed space. The resources for parents, got us through. And when Layden had her full heart repair, she had undiagnosed intestinal damage. And we didn't know, obviously nobody knew. And when she came out of her surgery, her stomach began to expand the following day. So it was a roller coaster because we were supposed to go home. She'd had one heart surgery before then. Actually, interestingly enough, the morning of her very first surgery, I had this weird feeling. I woke up, I wasn't living here, and I was like, I just gotta go to yoga. And I practiced out in Watertown where I lived. It was then Inner Strength, it's now Yoga Works. But I left, I needed that yoga class. So kind of when you speak for the power of yoga. This had been her second heart repair, and now there was undiagnosed intestinal damage. So she went in and had an exploratory surgery in her gut. They found dead intestine, removed that. It was going to be a 2-week delay, and we were going to go home. She didn't respond well. 2 days later, they did another surgery. So this was her 4th surgery, and Layden never recovered from that. She spent the next 30 days on machinery that was, she required 2 full-time nurses, one to run what was called an ECMO machine, which was basically life support, and one that was just tending to her needs. So all through that, though, what Layden really showed me, no matter what the medical intervention was, she didn't need to eat. She couldn't eat during that time. She didn't even need to necessarily be held. It didn't matter what her clothes were. She didn't care about anything. All she wanted to do was share love. That's it. And she would hear our voices, and her eyes would open, and she would wiggle her fingers and kick her feet. And I'll just never forget that. And she taught so many lessons, so many lessons. I do a lot of writing about them now. But why I'm here isn't only because I love sharing my daughter Layden. It means a lot to me as her mom. It's because both Children's Hospital and yoga were integral in my grief journey. And I think it's important, I think it's important to really talk about, that there is the need to do the work you're doing, and that it's really important work. And the fact that after Layden passed, Children's held a space for me to be a mom is literally why I'm able to stand here and speak today. And that started with running the marathon. We can go on to the next one. I don't need to see me. Layden's way cuter. Yeah, let's just stay on Layden, that's fine. So it started with running the marathon. So when we were in the hospital, we were there on Marathon Monday. We were supposed to go home. She had already had her heart surgery. And I looked at her and I said, Layden, next year we're running this marathon and we're doing it for Children's Hospital. After she passed, I was like, all right, I have 2 choices. I can honor this promise or not. And so I chose to honor the promise. And Children's held a spot for me on their marathon team. And I know this story isn't the most enlightening, but it's true, it's real, and I think it's important we hold space for these conversations. Not only that, but children's cardiologist. Many of you saw the doctor who was here before. I texted him on Longwood Avenue when I was here about 10 minutes before I got here and just said, not much of a heads up, I'm sure you're pretty busy doing your cardiology thing, but I'm gonna be at the hospital. He was immediately here. Like, that's children's to me. After Layden passed, I was very involved with the Marcia Freed Resource Room, and we raised money and built a rocking chair, and her doctors were down there building the rocking chair. Like, actually, with supervision, I was told, but building the rocking chair. And then yoga. So yoga had been important to me. I did prenatal yoga with Layden, so I consider her a yogi. I went there, it was kind of my safe space. It took me a year after Layden passed to get back on my mat. A year. I was a Division I athlete. I was training for the marathon, and I was knocked down to my knees when I finally understood the power of yoga. The work you do is transformative. It was too hard for me for a while to get on my mat and sit with it, to breathe through it, to hold space for it, right? All of the things you all teach in your practice, yoga brought me with children's collectively to where I am today. Now, this is almost 5 years later. I can't even believe it. I still get butterflies when I come to the hospital. The work you do, both children's and yoga, is transformative, truly. Because of both of the lines of work that you do, I am able to live Layden every day. I have changed my career. I'm now a life coach. I partnered with Christina over here, and we help women in gut health. Layden died of a sick gut. So everything I do now, is inspired by Layden. And so the resources that you collectively raise, right, they do it differently, but they're both really necessary. And we can't have one without the other, right? So we have to have the logistical element of children's, like we have to raise money to research, to support, to give to families. Like the machinery that Layden had gave her the best fighting chance that she could have possibly had, right? And so as much as I miss her every single day, I wear my little L for her and I think about her all the time, I feel good knowing that she had the best chance at this hospital. And that as her mom, I was able to give that to her, right? And so children's stepped in and held the space for me, whether it was running on the marathon team, giving me ways to be Layden's mom, essentially is what they did. And then yoga, I reference this a lot with Christina. I look back and I see the Melissa that couldn't get on her mat, and I see these shattered thousands of pieces. And I really credit yoga with taking those pieces and putting me back together, right? And so you don't ever get through these things, you don't ever get over them, right? But you learn how to manage them and you learn how to cope with them, and yoga did that for me. It inspired me so much that I actually am now a yoga instructor. And so, because I want to hold space for people to transform, and I'm always asked, what's your yoga style, right? And I've taught hip hop, I've taught gentle flow, I've taught vinyasa. Typically, I'm probably more power, strength. If anyone knows inner strength, that's more their style. But what I tell people is I am a transformative coach, like a spiritual coach, a life coach. That's what I want to attain, or people to access on their mats. And so needless to say, this event has a lot of meaning for me because it brings together basically the resources that allowed me to access everything Layden taught me. Right, the hospital holding a place for me to be a mom and making me know that Layden's life mattered and make a difference, right? And yoga that allowed me to be a human again and to piece myself together. And so I know that sometimes it's tireless and that we can lose sight of what people are accessing on their mats. We don't know what people are carrying. Sometimes they leave class, we have no idea what's going on, right? Or they're complaining about it's too hot, it's too cold, the music, right? We get it all, right? At the hospital, I know you guys all get it too. I know I was that mom at times. I literally fought battles to have the lights dimmed because that was going to be the deal breaker, but for me that was important, and children's did it, And so I just think both children's and yoga, you guys change lives. And the way that you're joining forces here to do this, it means a lot. As a mom, I want to thank you. As a human, I want to thank you. And I really want to do whatever I can to contribute to building more resources to do more of this work. And at the end of the day, when I shared what Layden taught me about the power of love, the first time I got on my mat, the only reason I even felt safe going back to that studio was because I knew I was going to be greeted with a hug. When I came back here tonight and saw Layden's cardiologist, I was greeted with a hug. And so of all the things Layden taught, it's that power of love. And so I'm just really honored to be a part of spreading that and sharing that and making this world a better